You wake up one morning, stretch, yawn, maybe check your phone, and everything seems perfectly normal. But then you look outside, and something feels off. The horizon is too straight. The sky seems different. And then it hits you. The Earth isn't a sphere anymore. It's flat, like completely flat. No curve, no roundness. Just one giant pancake floating through space. Now, if your first reaction is, well, that doesn't sound too bad, hold on to your gravity-defying hat, because things are about to get weird. And by weird, I mean catastrophically, apocalyptically, end-of-the-world level weird. Because if the Earth were to suddenly become flat, not gradually, not over millions of years, but instantly, the results would be, well, let's just say not ideal. So today, we're going to break down exactly what would happen if Earth suddenly became a giant, cosmic frisbee. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll be very glad our planet is the nice, comfortable, slightly chubby sphere that it is. First off, let's get something straight. Earth isn't round just because it felt like it. It's round because of physics, specifically gravity. Gravity is the reason planets and stars tend to be spherical. It pulls everything toward a central point, and over time, that force smooths things out into a nice, well-rounded shape. Kind of like how a drop of water naturally forms a sphere in space. So, for the Earth to suddenly become flat, something huge must have happened to its gravity. Either gravity just stopped working the way it's supposed to, or something way more bizarre occurred, like all the mass of the planet somehow rearranging itself into a disk shape. Either way, things are about to go very, very wrong. Let's start with the first few seconds after this unimaginable event. The first thing you'd notice, besides the terrifying realization that reality is breaking, is that gravity wouldn't feel the way it used to. See, if the Earth were a flat disk instead of a sphere, gravity wouldn't pull down in the same way everywhere. Instead, it would try to pull everything toward the center of the disk. That means if you're anywhere except the exact middle of this newly flattened Earth, you'd feel like you're being pulled sideways toward the center of the disk. Standing near the edges, you'd feel like you're on a steep slope, struggling to stay upright as gravity desperately tries to yank you toward the middle. It would be like living on the world's worst, most nauseating carnival ride, except you can't get off. And that's just the start. Oh, you like breathing? Yeah, that's about to become a big problem. Right now, our atmosphere exists because gravity holds it in place. But with a flat Earth, the atmosphere wouldn't stick around in the way we need it to. Instead of forming a nice, even blanket of air around the planet, most of it would collapse toward the center of the disk, just like everything else. So if you were near the edges of this flat Earth, oxygen levels would start dropping fast. It would be like climbing to the top of Mount Everest, except you didn't sign up for it and there's no way to come back down. If you've ever been out of breath after walking up a flight of stairs, imagine feeling like that all the time. And the further you got from the center, the worse it would get until eventually, no more air. Now let's talk about the sun, because things are about to get extra apocalyptic. In our normal, round Earth scenario, the sun rises and sets in a predictable way because our planet rotates. But if the Earth were a flat disk, that whole system collapses. For one, time zones as we know them, gone. Some areas would be in perpetual daylight, while others would be stuck in eternal darkness. If you were near the center of the disk, you might get something resembling a day-night cycle, but the further out you went, the weirder things would get. And the seasons? Yeah, say goodbye to those too. The way our planet tilts as it orbits the sun is what gives us summer and winter. Without that tilt, a flat Earth would either be scorchingly hot all the time or freezing cold, depending on how the disk was oriented in space. Either way, you're not packing away that emergency survival gear anytime soon. Now let's talk water. If the Earth suddenly went from a sphere to a disk, our oceans wouldn't just sit there and accept it. No, water is stubborn, and it loves to obey gravity. Which means all of our oceans would immediately start rushing toward the center of the disk. Imagine standing on a beach, watching as the entire ocean leaves like it just remembered an important appointment. Coastal cities, bone dry, middle of the disk, underwater, and with all that movement, weather patterns would go completely haywire. Our current climate system works because of the way Earth spins, creating things like jet streams and ocean currents. Without that balance, we get superstorms that make hurricanes look like a light drizzle. Expect winds so powerful they'd rip buildings apart like tissue paper. And while we're on the topic, say goodbye to the magnetic field. The Earth's core generates the magnetic shield that protects us from solar radiation. Without a spinning molten core, that protection is gone, which means every living thing would be exposed to deadly solar radiation. Not great. Now, at this point, things are looking pretty bleak. The air is disappearing, the oceans are rushing toward the center, and the sun is either cooking or freezing entire parts of the planet. But we haven't even talked about the structural nightmare of all this. Because here's the thing, a flat Earth isn't stable. Planets aren't disks for a reason. Over time, gravity would slowly start to crush and warp the disk, trying to pull it back into a sphere. It wouldn't happen instantly, but the edges would start crumbling inward, and eventually, the entire thing would collapse under its own weight. And if that weren't bad enough, a flat planet would have an extremely hard time staying in orbit around the sun. Right now, Earth's gravity keeps us in a nice, predictable path. But if we suddenly turned into a frisbee, well, let's just say frisbees don't stay in a straight line for long. We'd either drift out into deep space, freezing to death, or spiral into the sun, very much not freezing to death. So, in conclusion, if Earth suddenly became flat, things would get very bad very quickly. Gravity would go haywire, the atmosphere would abandon us, the oceans would relocate, and the weather would turn into an apocalyptic nightmare. And even if we somehow survived all that, the entire planet would eventually collapse or fly off into space. Which means, as fun as it might sound to live on a giant floating pancake, I think we can all agree, being a sphere is way better. So let's take a moment to appreciate our beautifully round, comfortably habitable Earth. Because when it comes to planets, roundness is definitely the way to go. And if you made it this far, congrats! You now have an excellent reason to politely tell flat earthers that their cosmic pancake fantasy would be an absolute disaster. If you enjoyed this brain-melting thought experiment, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more absurd questions with serious scientific answers. Until next time, stay curious and stay spherical.